For the first time, I have actually basically quit coffee in the way that's been painless, surprisingly easy. In this video, I want to give you the kind of blueprint to come up with your own game plan to make cutting coffee significantly or quitting it entirely surprisingly easy. I think many of us go about quitting just about anything entirely wrong, because really what we need to do is fall out of love with that thing that we're addicted to and fall in love with something else. I think that's a really easy way to think about it. And one word I was missing is manipulate. We need to manipulate ourselves into falling out of love with that one thing and then manipulate ourselves into falling in love with something else. And I'm going to share this with you in somewhat of a kind of workshop. So this requires you to do some thinking on your part. You want to walk away from this video with your own kind of game plan that you can actually get excited about. If you're new here, my name is Rachel. Each week I like to put together content on the things I'm legit loving and a sincere, honest, like catching up with your girlfriend kind of vibe, all right? So if that's of interest to you, would love for you to subscribe, and let's get into it, shall we? First step, think about one example of something that you've quit intentionally. So for instance, I used to be somebody, don't judge me, you judge me, it's okay, but just be nice about it. I used to be somebody that would put 8 sweet and low in my cup of coffee. If you've ever been somebody addicted to artificial sugar, you know it's designed to be that way. But I could not imagine drinking coffee without it being extra sweet. I phased out so that I went from 8 sweet and low over time to black coffee. Every few days, starting with 8 sweet and low, the next few days I'm going to 7. After a few days of that, I go to 6 and I phase myself to drink black coffee. That's one example. Another example, intermittent fasting. I phased it so that I would start my breakfast at 9 a.m. Did that for like a week and then phased to 10 and then so on and so forth. Now it's really not that big of a deal for me to have lunch at 1 or even 2 p.m. I'm used to that now. I've taken this phased approach. That, in a nutshell, is what we want to do here when we think about manipulating ourselves to fall out of love with coffee. Makes it so much easier than, coffee's bad for me, let me cut it cold turkey. Cut it cold turkey for a week, get through all the pain, all the withdrawals, and then you're like, still love coffee, right back there again. Yeah, I've done that several times now. So think about one example of something you've quit and say a phased approach. Maybe you are a cold turkey kind of person. But the reason why you want to have that example is you need to set up a belief system for yourself that you can actually do this, that it's actually possible. Because early on, for coffee lovers, it seems inconceivable, it seems overwhelming, and it can be very, very easy. Have that example in your mind, write it down, put it in your like Apple Notes, whatever you got to do. This is also a great way for you to build self-esteem with yourself and build trust with yourself, is to have these examples where you've actually followed through with something you wanted to do. All right, great. You have that in mind. Now let's really get honest with ourselves and dissect why we love coffee. Because if you can understand why you love coffee, one, you're probably going to be able to realize that there's some misconceptions or reasons you love coffee that are actually not true. And then we can also look at finding an alternative that helps meet that same kind of love you have for it. So reasons why I love coffee. I love the taste of it. I'm a coffee snob. In our household, we have roasted beans. We do the French press every morning. I love the taste of coffee. I love the ritual of it. It motivates me to get up out of bed. It gives me energy, or so I think, because if you're somebody that drinks a lot of coffee, it doesn't even have an effect anymore. So why you love coffee, and then see if there's a way that you can kind of dismantle your love for it. So for instance, with me loving it for the energy, it really stopped giving me energy because I always struggle with this word, anesthetized to it. I had so much that it doesn't even do it for me anymore. There are all sorts of other reasons you may love coffee. People love it for digestion. People love it for appetite suppression. Whatever it is, get clear on it and see if there's a way for you to kind of debunk what it is you say you love. And then also find an alternative. So if you like the ritual, you can easily replace the ritual with making hot tea. And there's all sorts of teas out there. There's also all sorts of coffee alternatives. If you do love the taste of coffee, there's always decaf too. Although you want to make sure you get one that's not toxic, because some of the decaf coffees are toxic in the way that they decaffeinate it. But anyways, then what you don't love about coffee. This is really important because it's going to be something that you can anchor on so that in the face of wanting to just have a cup of coffee, you can can keep these things in mind. So for me, some examples include it stains my teeth, it makes me irritable, it creates significant inflammation for me more and more. I get really bad breakouts when I drink too much coffee. I'm convinced it affects my scalp. I'm in the scalp psoriasis club, sad to say. Just inflammation in general, for me, I really feel that. Other people find that it affects their gut, anxiety, and mood. There's all these things that people experience, especially when they have too much. So what are those things that you don't like about it? What at least have 2 or 3 things that you can think of to motivate you to try something else? For me, it's the staining of the teeth, the mood, and actually sleep. I didn't mention sleep. Caffeine, even if you have a little bit of it. If you go a few days without having caffeine, it's like best sleep of your life for a lot of people. I have a girlfriend, she cut caffeine and she still struggles with sleep. But for me, during the durations, I've gone with 0 caffeine. I sleep the best I ever have. So far we have proof that you can actually quit something intentionally. We have why you love coffee, what you don't love about coffee. Now is where we come up with a game plan. And this is where I think we have an opportunity to phase ourselves out of coffee and into something else. Manipulate ourselves to fall out of love with coffee and manipulate ourselves to fall in love with something else. And we've got to take our time here. So much of the time it's like intense, got to do something new, immediate action, and we only set ourselves up for failure. And so in this case, we really want to take our time. There's many different ways you can go about this. Some people, they start with say 5 cups of coffee a day. I know for some that sounds extreme, but for others it's somewhat normal. Phase down so that 1 week instead of 5 cups of coffee a day, you're having 4. Do that for a week. 3 cups a day. Do that for a week. 2 cups a day. Do that for a week. For me, what I found is that because I drink coffee first thing in the morning, which turns out is like the worst way to do it, I've been delaying coffee. Not only am I delaying coffee, I'm replacing that first cup with tea. Been loving peppermint tea lately. I could also do green tea or something else, but I've been loving peppermint tea lately for whatever reason. And it's like I'm conditioning myself to go for tea instead of coffee. I still get my ritual. I still get that hot beverage. I still get the enjoyment out of it. It's just different. And every time I have that cup of peppermint tea, I'm thinking of the benefits of it. So I'm gonna sleep better by having peppermint tea. My teeth are not gonna be stained, and I'm not gonna be breaking out and inflamed like I would be with a cup of coffee. I've done this now where I wait to have a cup of coffee with lunch. Now, although people would be like, oh, having coffee that late in the day is gonna cause issues, but my primary motivation here is to get through a majority of the day not having coffee and applying this concept that I learned in an intermittent fasting book called Delay, Don't Deny. This is so important. With Delay, Don't Deny, we're able to relieve some of that anguish that can come with telling ourselves we're not allowed to have something. Isn't it funny how if ever you've gone on a diet, someone tells you you can't have bread, that is all you want. Somebody tells you you can't have coffee, that is all you want. But if you say, hey Rachel, gonna start with the peppermint cup of tea, still get your coffee, just gonna have it a little bit later, much more reasonable. And here's what's been really interesting, because now I'm at the point where I have phased it out so much, where I'm having a cup of coffee every other day. Okay, so yesterday, I actually had 2 cups of coffee. For some reason, I just really felt like it, and I just felt really pulled, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go for 2. Sure. Not too long ago, like several weeks ago, having 4 mugs of coffee, because mugs are bigger than cups, if we're honest with ourselves, I would have like 4 mugs of coffee, okay? Daily basis, not a big deal for me. I work from home. For me to have 2 cups yesterday, I ended up having a horrible headache, like right here. I slept horribly, like racing thoughts. And I had those 2 cups 10, 11 a.m. This is what I mean by falling out of love. You start the process of weaning yourself off, and then, okay, you have a slip up, you have a few cups, then you're turned off by it. Like now, coffee is off-putting. I felt horrible yesterday. That's what I mean by this whole falling out of love. This is where it's at, people. And my intention is to be somebody that has a cup of coffee once a week, because I do enjoy that, like, let's get shit done kind of energy with coffee. But I actually can now see the potential that I may not want coffee at all. I am legit falling out of love with coffee because I now can easily feel how jolty and intense it is now that I've phased out so much. So you can see here, it is this tact and strategy and taking our time, setting ourselves up for success. And so much of this is grounded on once seeing proof that we can actually do this, that's why you want to start with that first step of like, what have you actually quit before? How did you do it? What we love about coffee, because that's going to help us find a really good alternative. What we don't love about coffee, that's going to help us find our motivation for this, and then set up your game plan. Everyone's so different. If you've successfully cut out coffee either entirely or significantly, and you have tips, please be sure to share below. I've filmed this video about 5 times. And I'm sure I've missed something. But as with every video, your likes, your comments, your kind words, I can't tell you how much they help me. We're all going through something. And I know that cutting out coffee significantly is going to help my health, my well-being, and I know it will help all of us. So with that, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to continue talking about how I'm phasing out different inflammatory foods and things, including coffee. So be sure to subscribe, and I hope to see you next time.